At the beginning of this story, we meet a loser named Six, who was tricked by his two beautiful bosses, who told him he would receive a special surprise if he accepted the mission to conquer a different planet. So, without much thought, Six quickly accepted the mission, but later discovered he had made a huge mistake. Before that, Combat Agent 6 received information that he had been chosen to act as a spy for the Kisaragi Corporation. The news came from two women dressed as cosplayers, Astaroth and Belil, who told him that there were several planets similar to Earth and that he would be sent to one of them. The agent couldn't fully believe this technology of traveling between worlds and secretly doubted it. The women revealed that they were almost conquering the planet and asked if he knew what would happen to agents like him once the mission was completed. He assumed they would become rulers, but was informed that his department would be downsized and that he would be unemployed, as were many people watching that broadcast. Furious, Six reminded them that they had performed surgery on his body, changing it forever, and told them they should take responsibility. At this point, he was introduced to Lilith, known as the Shadow. He noticed she was carrying a teleportation device and was complimented on his insight. Next, he met Alice Kisaragi, whom he initially mistook for a child until she sharply corrected him. It was explained that Alice was a high-tech android designed to support him, and that her core would explode if he tried to harm her. Alice assumed a commanding stance and made it clear that she wanted to handle all tasks that required reasoning. As she considered Six a failure, he was then given two main tasks. The first was to build a base with a teleporter to facilitate travel between Earth and the new planet and to investigate the area for quick solutions to environmental and food problems. In an attempt to win affection, Six boldly approached Alice, but was rejected and thrown into the teleporter. He didn't realize that the machine had only been tested a few times and that it had the potential for catastrophic failure. By the time he realized the risk, it was too late, because it had already triggered the dispatch. The two fell in free fall through the sky, and Six asked Alice to transform into something that could help them land safely, but her only special function was self-destruct. Even though she came equipped with a parachute, they managed to land on the ground, and Six was eager to build the teleporter and return home immediately. Alice explained that the process would take at least a month. The planet they were on resembled Earth and likely had human inhabitants. Six suggested using the device he had received to summon a vehicle, but Alice reminded him that this required evil points, and he only had 300. She explained that all Kisaragi employees received a brain chip that recorded their evil deeds and awarded corresponding points, so he could increase his balance by performing such actions. Before they could discuss further, they were attacked by a group of monsters, and Six had to fight alone, while Alice assisted him as if she were just an ordinary girl. Irritated, Six called her scrap metal, but regretted it when he ended up trapped in a creature's mouth and had to use the device to order a shotgun for Alice. Fighting together, they managed to defeat the enemies. At that moment, they were found by a knight who spoke a language Six didn't understand. Alice intervened and introduced herself as a traveler, fabricating a story about Six being a high official from a distant country who had protected her. The knight, named Snow, was impressed by their skill and welcomed them with open arms. Six recognized an ancient artifact, which was actually a magically preserved tank that had helped the kingdom defeat a demon. They were surprised to discover the existence of magic, and Snow explained that only those with aptitude could use it. At the castle, they met Princess Tills, to whom Six was immediately attracted, albeit in a less than elegant way. The princess explained that the kingdom was at war with demons and needed strong warriors, as the neighboring demon lord had declared war without warning. She asked Six for help, but Alice apologized for his behavior, which was unbowed and strange. Snow briefly thought Six might be interesting, but dismissed the idea, saying she only cared about money. Snow showed off a rain-making machine, and Alice claimed she could fix it. Excited, Snow rushed to tell everyone, reminding them that the glory would be shared. After repairing the artifact, Alice suggested implementing a new password, and Six chose one that would embarrass the princess if she had to say it in public. Before they could do more, they were caught and tied up to be taken to the king. He didn't understand why Six acted that way, but he forgave them for restoring the artifact. Princess Tills realized the value of their strength and knowledge and asked them to work directly for her. Snow suspected they were spies, but Six reminded her that she was the one who let them into the kingdom. 6 was eventually named an honorary knight of the Kingdom of Grace and given command of a group of interceptors. Snow still didn't trust him, but Alice reminded her that he was now her superior and that she should respect the hierarchy. The kingdom's army was composed of older men and young women, and Snow began selecting members for 6's group. Alice reviewed the resumes and chose 2 that appealed to her. The first was Rose, an artificial combat chimera whose power was to absorb the abilities of demons by consuming large amounts of their flesh, giving her some of their physical characteristics, such as a tail, as well as breathing fire and performing strange actions. The second was Grim, a seemingly powerful sorceress. Snow suggested putting her in command to accelerate victories, but after a heated argument, 6 embarrassingly demonstrated her rudeness. Later, Princess Tills praised Snow for her efforts and ended the awkward scene. The group encountered an enemy goblin base, and Alice was surprised by how easily the princess's soldiers infiltrated it. Snow asserted that glory came from facing enemies head-on, but 6 argued that the best strategy was to cut off supply lines to force a retreat. Rose revealed that her grandfather's dying wish was for her to devour all the demons in the world to become the supreme chimera. Snow chose to attack the main camp to gain more glory and pay off debts he had incurred by purchasing an expensive sword, as his income had dropped after a demotion. 6's plan to attack the supplies worked, with Rose using her fire to destroy everything, including the goblins present. During the celebration, they were interrupted by Hein, one of the Demon Lord's 4 elites. She praised 6's ruthlessness and invited him to join the Demon King's army, promising he could command humans and choose any woman as a slave. Alice reminded him of his role as a hero, but he refused. As they prepared to fight Hein and his griffin demon, 6 realized how unprepared his team was without Alice and Rose. Still, Alice proved her worth by using special projectiles against giant creatures, despite the weapon's strong recoil, and grew increasingly interested in the duo's potential as the battle progressed. Soon after, a second demon appeared to support Hein and caught Grim off guard with an attack that knocked her unconscious. This new enemy, named Gadakand and belonging to the Demon Lord's 4 elites, entered the fray. 6 saw Grim's motionless body as Alice watched helplessly. Despite her grief, 6 composed herself and asked Alice to bring him a circular saw, intending to exact revenge on her enemy. However, Gadakand was recalled before anything could happen. Afterward, a funeral was held for Grim, although it was explained that such an attack would never have truly killed her, as she possessed demon blood and would return to life over time. Rose revealed that because of this blood, Grim had always been sent to fight on the front lines. It became clear that, like 6, she had also been mistreated throughout her life. They took her to an altar and left an offering in the hope that she would awaken. Before going to sleep, 6 stayed to watch over her friend. To her surprise, Grim suddenly woke up, imagining he was there to punish her for not fighting harder, but he explained that he simply didn't want her to return alone. The two strolled through the city, and 6 surprised her with a new wheelchair. She commented that people like them were different from the rest, and that the army sent them to dangerous places to get rid of them. 6, however, reveled in her new abilities and didn't want to leave her current group. As they ran through the city, scaring couples so he could accumulate evil points, they were stopped by an officer. Grim prepared to cast a curse on him, but warned 6 that if the curse failed, he would suffer the effects himself. In the end, it seemed the curse didn't work as expected, as Grim felt the pain and fell from his wheelchair. At the castle, the king received news that the demonic army had retreated for no apparent reason, something no one understood. Agent 6 appeared and took credit for the retreat, but the royal strategist was not pleased with his unit of women and children, nor with their questionable methods. 6 proudly revealed that it was his group who had set fire to the demon's supplies, which earned everyone's gratitude. The king explained that, according to legend, they should wait for the Chosen One, who would appear with a crest in hand to save them from the demons. Seeing this as an opportunity, 6 declared himself the Chosen One. Her revelation, however, was contradicted when Tills explained that the mark on her hand was not a sign of fate, but rather the venomous bite of a local mosquito. 6 realized she was only alive because of an injection she had received before their arrival. It was then revealed that the true Chosen One was Tills's own brother, who had recently received the crest. Later, Alice tried to make Rose eat a grasshopper, believing it would make her invincible and make her leap as a fugitive. Rose broke free and questioned why someone so powerful would allow herself to be controlled by the army. Struggling to remember who she really was, she could recall only vague memories of the grandfather who raised her, a man researching the miracle stone, capable of granting any wish. In exchange for her help, they promised to share discoveries about the ruins where she was born. Rose and Six agreed that she should become a combat agent like him, celebrating when she became his apprentice. That night, Six wondered why no one had fallen in love with him yet and believed that some special event must have already occurred to make him stand out. Annoyed, Alice made him touch her artificial parts, which only angered him. Just then, Snow knocked on the door to summon them to an important council meeting. In the hall, they were discussing how the Chosen One and his group had been defeated at Duster Tower by demons. Although the wounds weren't fatal, time was running out, and if nothing was done, the demons would win. According to the Chosen One, there was a treasure in the tower necessary to defeat the Demon Lord. Without it, the group would need to devise another plan. After mocking their previous defeat, Six suggested setting the tower ablaze, but was reminded that it was made of stone. He then proposed taking the first floor and setting fire to the center, but was ignored. It was decided to attack in full force the next day. With the battle begun, Six waited for nightfall, explaining that the chances of defeating the two demons who defeated the Chosen One were slim. Their goal was to buy time until Grimm awoke so they could devise a strategy. Snow decided to act alone, but returned to find Grimm still asleep. In his sleep, Grimm muttered fantasies involving Six, but woke before saying anything too embarrassing. The moment Six removed her heavy armor, everyone began to climb the side of the tower quickly. Snow, however, encountered a problem. After using her sword all day, her strength was fading, and a fall would mean death for her and anyone below. Six managed to catch her in time and urged her to hold on tighter to reduce the wind resistance, but she soon realized he wanted to take advantage of the situation to touch her again. Upon reaching the top, the two demons boasted of their victory over the Chosen One and hoped for a promotion. One of them even considered himself stronger than the Demon Lord, but was quickly attacked by Six. Gil, the other demon, was warned not to move, or Rista, who was hanging on, would be pelted with rocks until he fell. Six racked up even more evil points with this cruel plan, pelting Gil with rocks, who was unable to react. When the goat demon Rista returned and found Gil unconscious, Six declared there was still time to save him, but would only release him if he received something in return, blackmailing him for money and earning even more evil points. In the end, he obtained the treasure chest the Chosen One had mentioned. That night, Six received his reward for all he had done, while Snow still tried to understand how he had managed to negotiate with the demons. Despite their questionable methods, the group secured the treasure. The amount they received would have been enough to support an entire family in luxury for a year, and this led Six to decide to abandon his spy work for the Kisaragi Corporation and live there forever. He explained to Alice that he had never been valued at the company, and she wondered why he hadn't quit sooner. Alice also received her payment and was thrilled, as it was her second reward. The first being Six's shotgun. The general informed them that the treasure had opened a path to the Demon Lord's castle, allowing the heroes group to advance, but also brought news that they were under attack by Flame Hein. Six and the others' new mission was to eliminate Hein and his army. It soon became clear that it was all part of a plan by the bald strategist, who disliked Six. As they prepared for battle, Six and Alice commented on how obvious it was that they had been sent on a suicide mission, especially without being at full strength, since Alice's shotgun was being repaired and Grimm had fallen asleep again. Even so, Six planned to simply pretend to fight Hein. Finally, Hein appeared with an army and had conjured golems with his magic. Snow emerged wielding a newly acquired sword and immediately charged into battle, while Rose refused to participate, saying she wanted to shoot down a griffin so she could fly. Alice took it upon herself to defeat Hein, leaving Six in charge of the golem. However, they both encountered difficulties, and Alice had to resort to teleporting plastic explosives. Six tried his best to buy time until the explosives arrived, but was repeatedly defeated due to the long transfer time. He decided to release his suit's limiters, which started a countdown. At that moment, Rose appeared, complaining about the griffin's bad taste, but stopped talking when the countdown ended, and Six, with overwhelming power, defeated the golem. Meanwhile, Grimm finally awoke, and Six explained that after releasing the limiters, There was a 3-minute cooldown during which he was unable to move, leaving it up to his unit to protect him. It was at that moment that Hein approached, and Six knew he needed more time. He made a flirtatious comment to distract her, but it only infuriated her. Impressed by Rose, Hein showed disappointment after confronting Snow. Snow, in turn, appeared, claiming that his new weapon had been melted by Hein and urged Six to take revenge. He replied that he couldn't move, but Hein overheard and took the opportunity to offer him a place in the Demon Lord's army again, promising 3 times his current pay and a life of luxury and privilege. Six apologized to Alice while seemingly giving in to temptation, but the moment was interrupted by Snow's arrival. In the ensuing chaos, Hein lost a precious artifact called Magicite, the source of most of her power. Without it, she wouldn't have enough strength to remain among the Demon Lord's 4 elites. Ever calculating, Six decided to exploit the situation and forced her to pose for an embarrassing photo shoot, racking up more evil points with each image. However, she revealed her true intentions by refusing to return the Magicite, which earned her even more points. Furious, Hein flew away, vowing revenge. That night, the unit celebrated their victory over Hein, and Snow finally recognized Six and Alice's value to the group. Even though she didn't fully accept him, Six realized that she must, deep down, have some respect for him. Leaving a completely drunk Six in his room, Snow promised that one day she would kill him for provoking her so much. The strategist overheard this and took her to a secluded location. He acknowledged that Six's help to the kingdom had its merits, but reminded Snow of her goal of returning to the royal guard. Despite Six's rude demeanor, Snow admitted she didn't want to take all the credit for the unit's work alone. The strategist, still believing she disliked him, revealed his plan to find evidence against Six, something she had suspected from the beginning. When sent with a reward to deliver to him, she decided not to betray him. Outside Six's room, she overheard him talking to Alice and was surprised to hear him talking about what it would be like to be married to her. She was even more impressed when he reminded Alice of their mission for the Kisaragi Corporation and the need to focus on espionage and finding a safe house. Snow opened the door abruptly and confronted them about being spies. Six called her nosy for barging in without knocking, but it was clear Snow meant it. Even though she knew they were spies, she remained grateful for their help to her country and didn't ask about their true identities, demanding only that they leave immediately. Days later, Snow revealed that the strategist believed she had been the reason for Six's departure, and, therefore, reinstated her to the royal guard. Rose and Grimm were also allowed to return. Still, Snow felt guilty about her actions. During this time, Rose reported that the Demon Lord's army was mobilizing and could attack within days. Snow regretted not giving Six a chance to explain himself. But he, on the other hand, seemed to be managing well on his own. He and Alice had moved into a tavern and were working on installing a teleporter to connect to Earth. When it was ready, agents would be sent in and the country would be invaded. Alice noticed something strange in Six's behavior, but he reminded her that he was an agent of an evil corporation and that he had no feelings. Preparing the portal would take about a month, and they discussed what Six would do in that time. Alice warned that the demon army would return with greater force than before, but Six said Snow would get what he deserved for driving them out. He took responsibility for being a spy, though Alice pointed out that Snow had been overly lenient, as most countries would simply execute spies and use their heads as trophies. Six claimed he had no intention of saving her because he was no hero. That night, Six accumulated evil points by embarrassingly taunting the villagers. Snow interrupted him and told him he had reached a low level even by his standards, but Six revealed that he was actually preparing for the Demon Lord's attack by earning points. He was surprised to discover that she hadn't told anyone the reason for her departure, and took the opportunity to ask Rose to spread the story that Snow was always trying to get close to him inappropriately. Six offered to help in the upcoming battle, demanding only an apology, which Snow refused. The next day, Six discovered that his actions had earned him the dreadful reputation of Zipperman. Everyone mocked him for showing off to anyone, but it also resulted in a fair amount of evil points. Alice decided they would save 200 points for a trump card and use the rest to lay mines. When they finished laying mines, they were shocked to learn that the Chosen One had disappeared. Alice assumed he was close to defeating one of the Elite Four when an enemy used a teleportation spell, possibly causing his death. They reflected on how heroes often face hardship, train, and return stronger. But Six realized this Chosen One's trajectory had been different, as he had claimed the tower before redeeming himself and was likely defeated by the enemies within. With that last hope gone, Alice suggested suggested two desperate solutions: bring nuclear weapons from Hiroshima or infiltrate the Demon Lord's castle herself and self-destruct. Neither option pleased Six, who considered fleeing the battle, but before they could leave, Tills appeared hooded and accused Six of being a spy. He initially denied it, but eventually confessed under threat of torture. Surprisingly, Tills didn't want to arrest him, only wanting him to spread the story of his country's valiant fight against the Demon Lord and warn others of his power. Reluctantly, Six agreed to protect her for a while. Alice, however, reminded her that it would be easier to flee when the Demon Lord attacked, but Snow stated that she would rather die than retreat. Rose and Grimm hesitated, but eventually inclined to follow Alice's plan of resisting and defending rather than fleeing. As tensions rose between them, Tills worried about the impending war, while Six tried to distract herself by telling stories of strange unicorns and claiming that only innocent boys could ride them. On the other side, Hein led the Demon Lord's army, fearing that she would encounter that inconvenient opponent again. Suddenly, her army began to fall into disarray for unknown reasons, and Hein sensed the presence of the Magicite nearby, landing at the location of its origin. At the castle, Tills prepared to demonstrate her usefulness in battle, but was completely ignored, while Six accumulated more evil points by having inappropriate thoughts. Later, everyone prepared for battle when enemy forces approached, led by a wounded and enraged Hein. Inside the city, the battle between humans and demons raged on. Soon, Hein and the Demon Lord's army appeared on the horizon, ready for combat. Gritting her teeth, Grimm prepared a curse in hopes of immobilizing the enemy golems. She had collected wedding rings from every couple in the city, offering them as a sacrifice to her deity in exchange for more power. The curse worked, trapping the golems and rendering them unable to move, but Grimm was not satisfied. She begged her lord to seal Hein's flame magic forever, but the curse backfired on her. Undeterred, she continued casting spells until she ran out of offerings, perhaps even wishing that one of her wishes to weaken Hein would come true. Meanwhile, Rose joined the fight, but struggled against Gadakand. Although she had been mistreated by humans in the past, she now fought for them as an apprentice combat agent. Her grandfather had taught her to never abandon her friends and always fight for the truth. Snow charged into battle with her protector, while Grimm and Rose urged her to protect the princess at all costs. At the castle, Six tried to convince Tills to flee with him, arguing that even if they lost the country, their survival would mean victory, as the royal blood would continue. But their escape was interrupted by Snow, who informed her of the gravity of the situation and begged for Six's help, even offering her money and her new weapon in exchange. Alice insisted that Six ignore Snow and spend all her remaining evil points to ensure their escape back to Earth. With a heavy heart, Six agreed, remembering that he was now just a civilian after being discharged from the evil corporation. However, as he tried to flee, he remembered his past as an army commander and abandoned the idea, deciding to stay and help. He and his allies positioned themselves on the castle balcony, observing the chaos around them. He knew he needed to act quickly to save Rose and Grimm from being defeated by the demons. Alice, with her usual disappointed tone, commented that he had spent years in the Corps without receiving a promotion because he hadn't fully dedicated himself to the evil side. But there was no time to dwell on that. They needed to get to the main gate quickly. Six asked Alice to teleport an antimatter rifle, but she explained they didn't have enough points, and he admitted to having spent the rest on useless magazines. Out of options, he decided he could quickly earn points by attacking the king, but Snow stopped him, reminding him that violence wasn't always the solution. To everyone's surprise, Snow offered to let him hit her and earn the points. Six hesitated, but eventually chose an alternative method, ripping off part of her clothes, which generated the necessary evil energy. Alice encouraged him, knowing this could be the turning point in the confrontation. With the accumulated energy, Six materialized the antimatter rifle and, guided by Alice's instructions, accurately took down all the golems blocking the way. But the four elites still remained, advancing toward the castle, and Hein prepared to exact his revenge on Six. However, the group realized this was part of a plan to lure the demons to a single location. Six missed a shot, and the enemies soon realized he couldn't fire consecutively without depleting his energy. Amidst the tension, he asked Alice to bring out his ultimate weapon, the Bad Sword, a vibrating blade capable of destroying any armored vehicle. Alice hesitated again due to her lack of points, but the weapon eventually arrived. 6 released the limiters on her suit, unleashing all her available power for the final battle. She declared there was only room for one villain in this city and advanced on the 4 elites with the spinning saw. One by one, she felled them all, leaving only Hein standing. She admitted defeat and surrendered, exhausted and unable to move after releasing the restraints. 6 proposed a month-long truce. After the battle, Snow gave him a light kiss on the lips as a token of gratitude, but he claimed he only liked her looks, angering her. Later, Tills offered 6 a prestigious position among the knights, but he declined, saying he no longer wanted to lead an unpredictable unit. As he prepared to leave, Snow made one last attempt to convince him to stay. After reflecting and looking at his new friends, 6 decided to help once more, punishing the strategist by pulling out the last of his hair after Snow revealed that he had been plotting against them all from the beginning. As he was about to leave, Alice warned him that he had 190 negative evil points, which would bring severe punishment if he returned to Earth. They concluded that 6 would have to stay until he accumulated enough positive points. So, with a mischievous smile, 6 set out to torment his team again, tearing off their clothes. In a call with Asteroth, he explained that he could not leave that world now. She reminded him that he needed to send progress reports, and 6 replied that he would only comply if she agreed to marry him, which was refused. He realized he could not leave, and that, as the leader of his subordinates, he would not abandon the group on that unknown world. Ashtaroth also mentioned that Alice had told her about the situation and that she assumed 6 was simply afraid of leaving her companions. Even so, he asked for news of reinforcements, and Ashtaroth informed him that they were close to conquering the world, but that all the other agents were busy fighting enemies. Later, a duel took place between 6 and a reinforced member named Tigerman, but the fight was interrupted when 6's sword broke. At that moment, Snow appeared, alarmed. Recognizing her sword in his hands, she revealed that she still had a 5-year loan to pay for the weapon, but it was now destroyed. To calm her, 6 explained that the sword had gained its own consciousness and set off on a journey, returning only after losing a fight against a powerful demon lord, severely damaged. Snow was devastated, but luckily, Tigerman offered his sword as a replacement, which lifted her spirits. After a hard-fought victory, the group celebrated together, and Snow explained why she continued to fight alongside them even though she had the opportunity to leave long ago. She revealed that Princess Tills had given her specific instructions to remain with the group. Alice then explained her reason for accompanying them to the bar. Even though she couldn't eat or drink like humans, she was conducting research on food safety on that unfamiliar planet. While observing monsters for Alice's research, they came across a frightening scene. A group of barbarians known as the Skullbreakers were causing chaos and destruction. Fighting these creatures, 6 found himself alone amidst the confusion and, overcome with fear, ran for his life. Just then, he encountered a crab monster he had seen before. Realizing he knew very little about this planet and its creatures, he began to consider perhaps befriending some of these beings, but before he could, Snow arrived and killed the creature. At dusk, the group fed on the flesh of the monster 6 had intended to make an ally, and Rose revealed an unexpected truth. Grimm was summoning undead creatures. Alice dismissed this as superstition, and asserted that Grimm's supposed Lord Zenrith was nothing more than a myth. 6 watched as Grimm prepared to demonstrate the miracles of his god, but she lost her nerve when she realized she would have to sacrifice an innocent rabbit. Grimm asked 6 to make the sacrifice, but 6 refused. Alice, without hesitation, offered to kill the animal, but Grimm, still afraid, suggested using a piece of meat instead. After a while, Grimm managed to summon a demon, and 6 asked more about her. Grimm explained that he was only trying to summon an ancient evil spirit and didn't know who the demon was. The entity itself appeared before them, offering to grant any wish. 6, without a second thought, asked for her own harem, but no one knew what the creature might demand in return. Before Alice could protest, the demon tried to stop her heart with a gesture, but since Alice was an android, it had no effect. Determined, Alice asked her to create 2 habitable planets, but the demon explained that even she had limitations. Alice then wished for all demons to be eliminated, which also proved impossible. Finally, she made a final request that the demon unclog the toilet in the hideout. Offended, the creature departed in anger. Another demon appeared soon after, but it also posed no threat to Alice. Grim felt accomplished with the summoning, but Alice continued to doubt her powers. The next morning, at the castle, Tills pondered how to deal with her kingdom's water crisis. She considered using the rain machine technique, which had the inappropriate password created by Six. After several failed attempts, she realized the ritual required performing it in front of an audience, which would force her to pronounce the embarrassing password aloud. Without the king, who had purposely disappeared to avoid saying the phrase, Tills ordered Snow to go to a neighboring kingdom to fetch water stones. She hoped that Snow, with her beauty, would attract the local prince so they could use this to their advantage. Traveling by vehicle for the first time, the group arrived in the nation of Taurus. As they prepared for a party, Six commented that Grim was already in decline. Grim tried to curse him, but missed. The real problem arose when Snow focused on finding the prince and his fortune, without caring about his appearance. Despite all the attempts at flattery, the prince only wanted to discuss business and warned of potential trouble if he shook hands with an enemy messenger. Meanwhile, Grim attempted to punish a married man simply because she had shown interest in him, but her curse backfired. The team continued to act strangely, and Six began to question how she had ended up with such a troublesome group. Later, Alice revealed to Six a discovery she had made during her previous investigation. Unsure of its exact purpose, Six explained it was a capsule for storing objects. Just then, one of the Demon Lord's 4 elites appeared and expressed disappointment at who had defeated his allies. His name was Russell, but Six ignored him, immediately attacking Hein. Hein tried to explain that she was not an enemy and finally managed to gain Six's ear. Together, they confronted the prince, who planned to sell waterstones to the demons in the hopes of making a peace deal. Snow explained that this would be futile, as the demons' territory was constantly being turned into desert by the Sand King, forcing them to invade human lands. Hein revealed that there might be hope, as nearby ruins in Taurus might hold the key to defeating the Sand King. The prince reluctantly began to consider supporting the Kingdom of Grace, while Snow and Hein tried to convince him. Six, however, grew jealous that the situation hadn't been resolved. Surprisingly, the prince set aside his fame and prioritized diplomatic concerns. He explained that something had happened before the party and that he was no longer the same man as before. Six asked Alice to prepare for the escalation of the conflict, and she promised her support. Six then managed to accumulate more evil points by embarrassing the prince, which led the Kingdom of Grace to declare war on that nation and suspend all exports. They demanded an apology from Tills's emissaries and even their surrender. Snow took responsibility for Six's actions. As punishment for the failed mission, Tills demoted her but granted them time to prepare, as the enemy wouldn't attack immediately. Snow suggested using the artifact to make rain and resolve the water crisis, but was ignored. Instead, Tills tasked the unit with recovering a water nut located in the Sand King's territory, capable of storing large amounts of water. They set out on the dangerous mission, and Rose expressed concern that it seemed like a suicide mission. However, they discovered that the Sand King was only active during the day, so they planned to move under the cover of night. After collecting several water nuts, Alice again questioned the existence of magic in them. As they continued on, Rose suddenly sensed a powerful magical energy nearby. Soon after, the ground began to shake, and Grim urged Alice to repent her sins. However, it wasn't the wrath of his lord, but rather the Sand King, enraged by the theft of the water nuts. With no alternative, the group abandoned the vehicle and began a perilous journey across the desert to return to the kingdom, reaching the point where almost everyone was on the verge of collapse from the heat. Alice was unharmed, but decided to call a break for the exhausted group. With scarce supplies and few options, their only hope was to find food and repair the vehicle that would take them out of this place. Their luck, however, quickly changed when their first encounter was with an animal, which they decided to slaughter for food. As the situation worsened, Alice made the difficult decision to resort to the last option, using Six's morally questionable skills to rack up evil points. Although his actions were repulsive, they only earned enough points to survive for a few more days. But even after 4 days of wandering the desert, the situation didn't improve. Six had stopped earning points from his actions and could no longer advance his deficit. Rose then noticed how Grim constantly looked at Six and became concerned. She tried to help him earn more points, but to no avail, leading her to believe that Grim was genuinely interested in him. Later, while thinking about how Rose had observed his fights, Six realized she recognized that look from somewhere. She assumed she was simply feeling the heat, but concluded that she seemed too young for him to use his manipulative tactics. This left Snow as a possible target for his approach. That night, he tried to push the limits, offering food and shelter in exchange for Snow's revealing herself. She stood her ground, and the two came face to face. Frustrated, Alice accused Six of being a coward and of not seizing the opportunity, pointing out that this was the reason he never got promoted. Finally, Rose revealed her intention. She wanted to face Six in a Mortal Kombat-style match, with the winner allowed to eat the loser's flesh. The misunderstanding became clear when she demonstrated her intention to literally devour his flesh. With no alternative, Six prepared to fight for his life. He and Rose declared themselves proud warriors and began the confrontation. The intense fight eventually earned Six several evil points, allowing them to request another vehicle. He praised Rose as a worthy adversary, and the group finally returned to the kingdom. Upon arriving, they realized they had failed their mission. As the impending attack on Grace continued, Taurus and the demons had become allies. Although unwilling to help, Six knew he bore some responsibility and needed to act. Tills revealed the new mission. They were to recover an ancient weapon from the Taurus ruins that could defeat the Sand King and end the demon's reign. Alice recalled that this weapon had been sought for years. Six suggested that perhaps destroying it would be enough, but Alice corrected him, explaining that they just needed to get it back safely. At Kisaragi Corporation, the troops celebrated their victory over the heroes' latest counterattack, advancing ever closer to world domination. Asteroth, however, worried about their excessive relaxation, remembering that Six and Alice were still on a mission. Grim, as usual, slept in the Kingdom of Grace, and Six took the opportunity to reprimand Asteroth for not letting him advance further into his negative evil point balance. At that moment, they received an email from Lilith informing them of a live broadcast of the corporation's celebration. At the event, there was great anticipation for the annual vote for the company's best leader. An idea Lilith revealed was Six's, created to settle the dispute over who should be his boss. Six was irritated to see everyone having fun without him present, but Alice realized that Lilith had a plan in broadcasting the event to attract the audience by showing off her most striking legs and then charge a subscription for continued access. Lilith was betting on herself to win the vote, but was reminded that she always came in last place. Belil was in the lead at the time, but pointed out that Asteroth also had a good chance because he genuinely cared about his subordinates. Lilith managed to get Asteroth to admit that she wanted to know who Six had voted for. As Six watched and Alice explained Lilith's plan, fears grew that too much information would be revealed. Asteroth began to open up, and Lilith became worried that she would reveal important secrets. Asteroth stated that, if necessary, they could even fire agents like Six, but that she would fight for them all. It was then that they realized they were being broadcast live. Becoming embarrassed by what they had said, Lilith tried to defuse the situation by asking Six to say good things about Asteroth, but instead, he revealed that he had recorded the entire event to watch whenever he wanted, which earned him more evil points, much to Asteroth's dismay. Belil tried to console her by saying that many had changed their votes after her speech, and that she was probably in first place. But to everyone's surprise, Lilith was back in the lead, this time with over 1 million votes, far exceeding the actual number of employees. Lilith explained that she had hired hundreds of thousands of fake employees, offering them unlimited time off and $500,000 a month just to vote for her. After being forcibly removed by the two contestants, the count was corrected, and Asteroth appeared in first place, recalling how Six had helped in past campaigns with tricks to secure votes. However, another update showed Lilith in the lead again, now with even more votes, revealing that she had manipulated the system all along. She celebrated her victory while the others were stunned. Her decision not to pay the fake employees drew retaliation from the other two, but Lilith merely shrugged, stating that this was the nature of an evil corporation. A heated argument soon ensued. Eventually, it was decided that gift cards would be distributed as compensation, with the amount taken from Lilith's own paycheck. As Belil suggested, Asteroth then asked Six who he had voted for, but a sudden alarm interrupted the conversation. The group noticed a group of heroes approaching, and Lilith revealed that they had received the information because she had broadcast the event. Asteroth confidently declared they would defeat the heroes and encouraged Six and his team to also defeat the Demon Lord. The next day, Alice announced that Tigerman could not accompany them to the ruins, as he needed to remain to help the kingdom hold off the Demon Lord's army while the Royal Guard faced Taurus's troops. It would be up to Six and his group to infiltrate Taurus to retrieve an ancient weapon capable of ending the battle. Along the way, Six remembered Rose's attempt to devour him, which made Alice impatient, while Snow complained about the debts accumulated from purchasing weapons and tried to console herself. Six ended up being the target of ridicule when Alice revealed she paid him an allowance. She offered Snow an allowance and a bonus if the mission was completed, and Snow enthusiastically accepted, confessing he would do anything for money, even sacrificing those close to him and abandoning all his principles. While discussing the mission, Six saw potential in Snow and believed she could be a good agent for the Kisaragi Corporation, but Alice explained that she wasn't actually bad as they thought, just a low-level profiteer, just like Six himself. Upon reaching their destination, they observed the demon-infested area. Russell, one of the 4 elites of the demons, explained to Hein that they had already faced countless enemies and would reach their objective the next day. He also revealed himself to be a combat chimera, with unlimited magical power as long as he continued to feed. Six began to question what Grimm, another member of the unit, had truly accomplished, but Grimm defended himself, saying she was a valuable member. Snow then stated that she planned to infiltrate the enemy camp and attack while they slept, something Grimm considered cowardly, prompting the others to taunt him that Six's influence was affecting his behavior. Six, however, had another plan. After a night's rest, they would let the demons go first, triggering all the traps and facing the monsters along the way. When they were exhausted, they would launch their attack. The next day, they entered the ruins cautiously. Alice commented that she had always felt there was something strange about that world. Snow, driven by her greedy nature, began collecting relics, believing they might be worth money. Even Alice became distracted exploring the place, while Rose felt a strange familiarity, possibly due to some connection to the place. While Hein and Russell faced the Guardians, Six and her group followed closely behind. Despite their differences, Hein and Russell demonstrated a friendship during the battle. Russell boasted about the power of the combat cameras they had at his side, but Hein insisted on protecting him, as he was the only one capable of defeating the powerful Sand King. As they approached the ancient weapon, Grimm cast a curse to weaken the demons, but some in the group began to empathize with the creatures who merely followed orders. Alice reminded them of the bonus they would receive for completing the task, and they quickly abandoned morality in exchange for money. When they finally reached the weapon, Russell revealed his true intention was to use it to exact revenge on the humans. Hein, despite being pro-human, also admitted wanting to use it to exact revenge on Six. At this point, Six intervened and earned some badassery points by using Russell as a hostage. Hein exposed Six's plan to let them do all the work and then take the prize, which created tension. Alice then pointed out that Russell wasn't breathing, causing panic, until she suggested trying to revive him with one of her devices. When Russell woke up, he realized that Six only wanted to keep him alive so she could activate the weapon and then observe him from a safe location. Six demanded that he activate the weapon and give precise instructions on how to use it. Russell complied, but Alice concluded that destroying the weapon would cause more harm than good. Six then tried to use Hein as a hostage again, but Russell rebelled and declared himself in charge, holding both humans and the Sand King under his power. Hein managed to escape, but Six, before fleeing, took the small piece of cloth that had covered part of Hein as a souvenir. She teleported back to her soldiers, but with less clothing. The group tried to flee the gigantic robot, but upon reaching the exit, they found Russell waiting. He told them they could not escape and would have to face their fate. Grimm suggested using his curse against the ancient automaton controlled by Russell, but Alice, skeptical of its effectiveness, disagreed. Grimm cast the curse on Alice, who once again turned against herself. In the heat of the battle, Six considered using his subordinates as weapons against Russell, but Rose intervened, saying that, as a combat chimera like Russell, he should face the situation alone. For the first time, Six refused, asking his team to retreat and wait while he asked Alice for a plan. She revealed that their only chance of survival would require Six to go into negative evil points, a risky move. He trusted her reasoning and leadership, knowing she wouldn't deceive him. Alice explained that they would need to build a powerful robot to fight the enemy. In combat, Six realized that his human abilities were no match for the robot and devised a plan to drain its energy, which came from the user's own life force. Since Russell was a combat chimera, his energy was virtually unlimited as long as he was fed. Determined, Six joined the fight, using flash grenades and various weapons, surprising Russell and creating an opening to escape. Russell realized that Six wouldn't sacrifice himself for the others and decided to attack his allies. Desperate, Six used all his strength to provoke him and keep him focused on the duel. duel. Just then, the sound of something colossal approaching filled the air. Six informed him that it was the pride of the Kisaragi Corporation, the mobile destroyer fortress controlled by Alice. Encouraged by Six, Alice entered the battle piloting her own giant combat suit. Later, after they were reunited and recovered, Six thanked Alice for her strategy and courage. She explained that she continued using the robot to terrorize the Taurus army, forcing it to retreat, and single-handedly defeated the Demon Lord's army. The mission was complete, but Six remained unconscious for several days, during which time Alice never left his side and cared for him, promising to remain forever. Later, they visited Russell in prison. He refused Six's offer to switch sides and reveal information, saying he would never betray his group. Six threatened him, but the fearless enemy only responded with taunts until he showed fear upon seeing Tigerman. Finally, he agreed to do as Six ordered. Grim was frustrated at not having been singled out for success on the mission, but Six reminded her that she had her moments, even if they were funny flaws in her curses. Feeling guilty, Grim asked to be transferred to another unit, but Six changed her mind when she noticed her sadness. He began to question the curse that prevented her from wearing anything on her feet to test it. He called Alice, and they were both surprised to see that when they put socks on her, Grim actually exploded. Meanwhile, Asteroth read Six's report on the mission's success, but also on the ongoing difficulties on the planet. Six called for reinforcements, and Asteroth considered helping him. That night, Six explained that, having spent all his points on the mission, he still couldn't return home or rest. Alice revealed that the Kisaragi Corporation would continue to force him to conquer more planets. With this in mind, Six considered staying on that world forever and building his permanent base. And with this, we conclude this story. Like if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more videos.